The stars were quiet until a scream echoed across the galaxy. The cry burst from a lonely system on the spiral's edge, carried by ancient radio and bright quantum pulse. It was a single word in 1,000 tongues. Help! High above their jewel-blue world, the Arxan home guard watched ruins spread like rust. Kravari. Siege cruisers cut slow circles through the night, peeling away orbital stations one by one. Inside the command dome, Captain Relin Vex clenched a trembling jaw. Shield. Lattice down to 48%, the helmsman croaked. Sparks danced from his console. Gravity grid losing cohesion. Relin touched the hairline fracture in the plastiglass viewport. Beyond it, silent explosions flared like dying suns. "No one is coming," she whispered, almost to herself. Her elder Thoresen adjusted the silver bands of her diplomat's robes. "We have traded with every great species," she said, "yet our calls go unanswered. Our alliance is just words." Relin swallowed anger. "Then we speak to strangers." A hush spread across the bridge. Strangers was a dangerous word. The ancient scrolls described hidden empires, lost war races as sort of civilizations one did not disturb. Still, the Kravari were dismantling Arxan hope cell by cell. Relin strode to the signal dais. "Patch the distress beacon into our deep space array." "I will amplify it tenfold," Captain Thera warned. "We cannot know who will hear us." Relin's reply rang with cold resolve. "We know exactly who will not. Every so-called friend in the Council." The beacon fired a piercing cylinder of light and data hurtling past nebulae and dwarf stars. Past the glimmering trade routes where merchant caravans pretended not to see. In the trillionth fraction of a second, the plea reached a forgotten file buried in an old relay station orbiting a small yellow star. Planetary designation, Sol 3. Local name, Earth status, quarantine reason, Death World extreme biosphere. Predatory natives, violent history, the station's caretaker drone. Obeying protocol no living mind had checked in centuries, forwarded the message to an address marked if emergent class threat. Forward without delay. On Earth, deep within a mountain fortress, Major Elena Ward reviewed the incoming packet. The Human Defense Network translated the alien dread into cold facts. Location, fleet strength, casualty projections. Her brow knitted. "Arxan," she muttered, tasting the unfamiliar syllables. "We've never met them." General Marcus Hale joined her, boots echoing. "We built the fleet for this," he said. To break the cycle of silence the galaxy forced on itself. Elena folded her arms. "Some will argue it's not our fight." Hale tapped the console. A hologram of burning cities spun above his palm. "Suffering is always our fight." He turned to the comms officer. "Transmit. Signal received. Reinforcements en route. Then activate Operation Lighthouse." Far below, great blast doors rumbled open. 6 midnight black warships, hulls, etched with names like Indomitable and Mercy's Blade, slid from their cradles. Engines ignited, brighter than dawn. Earth's fleet rose, and the old mountains shook with thunder. Back on Arxan Prime, Relin paced the dim bridge. Hours bled into days. Kravari trooplanders punched through atmosphere like iron rain. Each impact bloomed crimson on the world map. Elder Thera approached, voice brittle. "We should prepare surrender terms." Relin's answer was a flat no. Yet fear gnawed at her resolve. Was the beacon a whisper into emptiness? Suddenly, the main display flowered with new signatures. 6 no, 8 known vessels. Exited slipspace at the system's rim. Their drives flared white, not the cold blue of Kravari reactors. The entire bridge froze. Sensors officer Jex, Arrel gasped. "Energy readings off scale. Identify," Relin barked. "No match in council records," Jex stammered. "But they're Vectora. They're coming between us and the Kravari flanking group." A grainy feed crackled open. A strong voice female steady spoke in universal code. "Arxan Command, this is Rear Admiral Ward of the Terran Defense Fleet. We heard your distress. Do you require military assistance?" Thera's eyes widened. "Earth," she breathed. "The Death World." Relin felt the weight of history pivot. She stepped to the transmitter. "Terran Fleet, this is Captain Relin Vex. We require every bit of help you can give." "Copy that," Admiral Ward replied. "Stand by. We'll take it from here." The Terran ships surged forward like predators scenting blood. Their hulls seemed to swallow light, matte and ominous. Kravari cruiser Bloodfang locked weapons. Confident in its centuries of conquest, it fired first. Brilliant lances of plasma streaked across space only to smear harmlessly against an unseen barrier. Then Earth struck back. Rail coil slugs, moving at a fraction of light speed, punched neat holes clean through Kravari alloy. Bloodfang's core went dark in a single heartbeat, its wreckage spinning like broken pottery. Arcs and command decks erupted in stunned cheers. Relin gripped her chair, unable to look away. "Focus," she told her crew. "Coordinate with the Terrans. Target priorities to defense batteries." Yet, as humans fought, they did not ignore the wounded planet below. Smaller gunships detached, dropping lifesaver pods through firestorms to evac hospitals and shield generators actions, no purely tactical calculus required. Thera watched, tears catching silver in bridge light. "They bleed for strangers," she whispered. Kravari Commander Lord Voresh barked orders across a failing cumnet. "Their shields are impossibly strong. Swarm them." But Earth's formation shifted with almost fluid grace. Fighters, drones, and micromissiles peeled away like petals, intercepting incoming waves before they could coalesce. With every Kravari detonation, hope rekindled across Arxen Prime. Inside her flagship, Admiral Ward surveyed damage reports her own hull already, scoring a testament to risk taken. She opened a narrowband line. "Captain Vex, our supply train is limited. If you can rally your surface guns, we can break their line in one push." Relin's reply was immediate. "We will fight beside you," she relayed orders planetside. Ancient ground to Space Canaan's museum, pieces before the siege shuddered awake with new energy routed from city reactors. When the combined barrage came, was both orchestra and storm. Arcs and plasma bolts rose from the clouds. Terran kinetic rounds fell from the void. Kravari ships, caught between hammer and anvil, cracked open in bursts of white heat. Lord Vorash tried to retreat, but human interceptors chased, carving his command, ship to scrap. As its engines flared out, Terran transmissions offered surrender twice. Vorash answered with hateful silence. His vessel detonated, a last spiteful glare in the dark. The moment sensors confirmed target destruction, a hush fell. Over every channel, it was the silence of impossible victory, finally. Real dot lights dimmed on the Arxen bridge as cheers faded into exhausted disbelief. Relin faced Thara, voice raw. "Why would beings from a death world risk themselves for us?" Thara looked toward the viewport, where Terran ships settled into protective orbit, hulls still glowing. "Perhaps," she said softly, "because they know what it is to be alone." A chime sounded on. Incoming fleet-wide broadcast from Admiral Ward Relin opened the channel. "Arxen Prime. Humanitarian teams are ready. We'll land medical and engineering staff within the hour. Coordinate landing zones and threat assessments." Straight into fire, she thought, lost returning to her eyes. "We will stand with you, Admiral." Ward's tone softened. "That's good to hear, because the Kravari will come back and the Council may choose sides. Until then, Terra stands between you and the dark." As dawn crept over scarred continents, Arxen citizens emerged from shelters. They looked up, expecting ruin, and saw instead sleek black shapes glinting like guardian stars. Children, pointed eyes wide. Elders clasped trembling hands in prayer to gods they thought had turned away in the streets. Wounded soldiers met Terran medics clad in white-striped armor. A young Arxen trooper, bandaged arm-shaking, asked a question through translation tablets. "Why help us?" The human medic smiled gently. "Because you asked." Deep space sensors still warned of distant Kravari regrouping. Council diplomats debated frantic petitions. Yet on this battered world, life breathed anew. The SOS had not vanished into nothing. It had reached a people unafraid of hard planets and harder choices. That evening, as Captain Relin toured field hospitals, she paused at a makeshift landing pad. Admiral Ward approached, visor off, eyes tired but fierce. The two commanders regarded burning horizons painted gold by debris-scattered sunsets. Relin spoke first. "We owe you everything." Ward shook her head. "Owe us a promise when someone else screams across the stars. Pass the signal on." Relin answered with a soldier's salute and a quiet vow. We will not be silent again. Overhead, Terran warships adjusted orbit, casting long shadows across plains once bright with fire. In those shadows, hope found footing, and the galaxy learned that Earth listened when others turned away. The stars were quiet once more, but this time, millions of voices listened back, knowing that if darkness rose again, an unexpected fleet would answer. They found the signal reached Earth, a world labeled too dangerous to contact. The message had been sent. The Arxen had broadcast their desperate cry across the stars. Then, silenced. Captain Relinvex sat on the war-battered bridge of the Arxen flagship, staring at the fading red marks on the star map. Every Kravari ship destroyed was replaced by 2 more. How long since we sent the signal? She asked. 39 standard hours, replied Officer Jex Earl. The silence felt like betrayal. The Galactic Council, those noble, rich, powerful species, still refused to respond. Not one word. And worse, there was no confirmation that the Arxen's final message had even been heard by anyone. Relin slammed her fist against the console. We're screaming into an empty void. Elder Tharasen sat beside her, quiet but alert. No, she said slowly. It's not empty. The void watches. The real question is, who heard us? Millions of light years away, in the cold shadow of Earth's moon, a satellite blinked to life. It hadn't moved in centuries. Dust lay thick on its hull. Its warning label had faded away, but now the machine hummed again, receiving an unauthorized signal. SOS Priority Red Source, Arxen, System 3. Hostile invasion detected. Dresver, SOL-3 Earth. The machine hesitated. It accessed old files. Warnings from long ago: do not respond to alien requests. Defense network. If they beg for help, and no one answers. Let us be the voice in the dark. The satellite forwarded the message. It raced down toward Earth like lightning. Inside Terran High Command, alarms blared. General Marcus Hale entered the war room with fast, heavy steps. What is it now? Another asteroid drill? No, sir, said Lieutenant Amara Quinn, her hands flying over the keyboard. It's a real signal. Deep space distress. Alien origin Arxen species. Under full-scale attack. Hale's eyes narrowed. Why us? She hesitated. Sir, it seems no one else answered. There was silence in the room. Then a quiet voice from the back spoke. It was Admiral Elina Ward. We were the last on their list. Or maybe the only ones crazy enough to answer. Hale looked toward the dark sky beyond the command dome. Then we send a message. Simple. 1 line. Back on Arxen Prime, Captain Relin prepared for the worst. Cities were falling. Defenses were crumbling. People were losing hope. And then Hercom's officer gasped. Captain, new transmission received. It's single quotes as ... unknown origin. Play it. She ordered. The screen blinked to life. The message was short, in perfect universal code. We received your call. Help is coming. Terran Defense Fleet. Earth, no one moved. For a moment, the bridge was still. Then Thera stood up slowly. Earth, the death world. Relin turned. You know of it, Thera nodded. It's spoken of only in whispers, at the Council. A violent world. A cursed planet where even the plants try to kill you. They say its gravity crushes bones. Its storms destroy cities, and its people. Its people are worse than war machines. Relin raised an eyebrow. Then, why would they help us? Thera stared at the blinking message. Maybe ... because they know pain better than we do. Across the galaxy, in the orbit of Earth, warships were waking. The Terran fleet was not part of the Galactic Council. They had never joined the alliances. They had never signed peace treaties. They stayed silent for decades, watching. They bore names not of peace but of memory. Vengeance, one echo of silence, remnant of fire ashes, of home inside the lead ship. Admiral Ward stood before her officers. She didn't smile. She didn't shout. She simply said, we have a new mission. Location, Arxen Prime. Objective, stop the Kravari. Ward nodded once. We are now in the Arxen capital. The skies had turned red. Kravari troop transports fell like metal rain. Families fled into tunnels. Hospitals overflowed. But with Hope. 6 unidentified warships exited. Slipstream, glowing with impossible power. Their hulls absorbed light. Their engines roared like dragons. The Kravari ships locked on instantly. Unknown vessels detected. Hostile status unconfirmed. The first Terran message came through every frequency. To the Kravari fleet, you are attacking civilians. This is your only warning. Leave now or face the fury of Earth. The Kravari laughed and opened fire. Plasma blasts surged toward the Terran ships. But something strange happened. The blasts vanished, swallowed by invisible shields. Then, in an instant, Earth responded from the belly of Vengeance 1. Railguns fired pure kinetic slugs, traveling 10 times faster than sound. They tore through the nearest Kravari cruiser like paper. One hit, one kill. Panic spread in the Kravari ranks. They turned, but Earth's ships danced through space with impossible precision, and then the Terran fighters were released leak black and silent. Each one manned by pilots, born and raised on a world where survival meant learning to fight before you learned to run in orbit. Admiral Ward contacted Arxon Command. Captain Relin, this is Ward of the Terran fleet. We are engaging enemy forces. Please confirm locations of your civilian shelters. Relin answered quickly. We have 8 major underground zones. They're being hit. Ward nodded. Copy. Human dropships are inbound. We'll reinforce your ground forces within the hour. Relin blinked. You're sending soldiers? Yes, Ward said. We brought Marines and medics and supplies. Thera leaned closer to Relin. They came prepared. Relin felt something strange in her chest. Not fear. Not shock. Hope. Back in space, the Kravari fleet realized not one was allowed to escape. The battle was over in minutes. 35 minutes, and the entire enemy fleet was gone. On the surface, Terran Marines landed in fire and smoke, wearing armor that shimmered with technology no one had seen before. They moved with speed and purpose. Some carried weapons that fired lightning. Others carried stretchers and food. An Arxon medic stared at a human soldier. Why are you doing this? The Marine answered simply. Because you asked. In the council chambers across the stars, leaders panicked. Earth has moved. Who activated the Death World? Did anyone authorize this? But Earth did not care for council rules. They never had. They had watched the galaxy betray each other for too long. Now, they were done watching that night, on Arxon Prime, under the broken moonlight. Captain Relin walked through a hospital camp. Human doctors treated Arxon children. Human engineers restored power to the capital. THARA stood beside her. They came for us, Relin. No council vote, no price, just help. Relin nodded. Earth heard the scream we thought no one would hear. Above them, Earth's fleet stood silent guard, engines burning like stars. For the first time in weeks, Arxon slept beneath peaceful ski. The sky over Arxon Prime was quiet again. Too quiet after the battle. Wreckage of Kravari warships floated like broken bones across the orbit. The Arxon had survived the first wave. Because of Earth Captain, Relin Vex stood at the viewport of her command deck, staring at the black ships now in their orbit, silent, watchful, and terrifying. They don't speak much, said Officer Jexeril, stepping up beside her. No, Relin replied, but they've said more with one battle than the Galactic Council has said in years. Behind them, Elder Tharasen studied the incoming fleet readouts. Their ships don't follow standard designs. Look, no visible energy cores. No identifying beacons, no decorative flags. They don't want to be seen, Jex said. Thera shook her head. No, they want to be feared. High above, inside the TSS Vengeance 1. Admiral Alina Ward stood before the glowing table of the war map. Kravari ships were gone, but this was no time to relax. The AI system Atlas flickered to life. Admiral, remaining Kravari fleets have scattered, but long-range scans show another force forming. Reinforcements are likely. Ward narrowed her eyes. Then we need to prepare. How many Arxon civilians remain in vulnerable zones? Approximately 1.2 million, scattered across 7 major cities. 3 are without functioning defense grids. Ward gave her orders with cold precision. Send in Phoenix and Mercy's Blade, deploy drop teams. If we can't hold orbit forever, we'll fortify the ground. On Arxon soil, the black shapes of Terran drop pods screamed down through the atmosphere like falling stars. They hit the ground hard. Doors burst open. Out stepped soldiers in matte black armor, visors glowing red. Each one moved with exact discipline. No wasted breath, no chatter. They spread out instantly, securing roads, scanning for threats, setting up mobile shield towers. The Arxen had never seen warfought like this in the capital city of Velar Prime. Captain Relin met with a Terran ground commander, Colonel Riker Kane, a towering human with scars across his face and a voice like gravel. "You are leading this unit?" Relin asked cautiously. Kane nodded, 3rd Armored response. "We're your line now," Relin hesitated. "You don't even know us. Why risk so much?" Kane looked past her at the burning horizon. "I've seen too many good people scream for help and get silence in return," he said. Earth doesn't do silence anymore. Inside the city, chaos still ruled. Families were scattered, water and power were gone. But within hours of landing, the Terrans had set up shield domes, food generators, and medical hubs. A young Arx child, her hand in a sling, stared at a human doctor who applied gel to her arm. "Are you from Earth?" she asked. The doctor smiled. "Born on the dark side of the moon," he said. "But yeah, I'm human." "Are you monsters?" she asked quietly. "The stories say Earth people eat others." He laughed. "We only eat jerky and painkillers. You're safe, far above." In orbit, Admiral Ward met with her command staff. Holopictures of Arxen. Cities filled the room. Damage reports, rescue counts, and power grid failures scrolled past. "Report," she asked. General Tanner Miles responded. 3 cities stabilized. Resistance is organizing." "But something else?" He pointed to it. "New scan? A Kravari dreadnought just entered a nearby system, one of their heavy carriers. We estimate it's leading a new fleet." Ward stared at the red marker. "How long before it reaches Arxen Prime? 24 hours? Maybe less." In the council chambers of the Galactic Alliance, alarms rang. The Arxen's call had been answered by Earth, and that fact alone had shaken the other species more than any Kravari invasion ever had. Representatives shouted over each other. They moved without permission. "That planet is classified as Tier 0, not to be engaged. They've violated isolation protocols." But one voice rose above the noise. Ambassador Valsar, a scaled diplomat from the Gorvan Union, stood tall. "You're all afraid," he hissed, "because the one species we called untouchable just proved that they're more honorable than all of us." The room fell quiet. They answered a cry for help. And he looked around. We closed our ears, like cowards. On Arxen Prime, people gathered near the Terran outposts. They came not to protest, but to watch, to learn. Relin walked among her own people, feeling strange emotions stir. Fear, yes, but also curiosity and respect. She found herself beside Colonel Kane once again, watching as his soldiers drilled under the rising sun. "You train constantly," she said. Kane didn't look away. "Earth is a hard world. If you don't train, you don't survive." "Why are you so good at war?" she asked. He finally looked at her. "Because war never left us alone." In the sky, Earth's satellites deployed. These weren't weapons, they were eyes. Cloaked drones that watched every inch of the system. Scanning for Kravari slipstream activity, they found something. A new fleet, bigger than before. Kravari command vessels, siege towers, orbital mines, and at the center, the Void Reaper, a dreadnought the size of a moon. Atlas delivered the report to Admiral Ward. Her jaw tensed. "They're bringing their full strength," she said. General Miles looked uneasy. "That ship leveled to planets last year. We don't have enough firepower to take it down." Ward turned to the screen showing Arxen cities, hospitals, children. "We're not leaving. We hold here, or we die here." Back on the surface, Relin addressed her troops with Terrans at their side. They now had hope. But the Kravari would not let go easily. "We stand on the edge of history," she said. "Once, we believed we were alone. Forgotten, doomed. But someone heard us. Earth heard, US. And now we fight not just for our planet, but for the ones who answered when no one else would." Arxen soldiers roared. Terran Marines nodded in silent approval. As night fell, the horizon shimmered with incoming lights. Slipspace ruptured. The Void Reaper arrived, and behind it, hundreds of Kravari warships. The second wave had begun. The second Kravari wave had arrived. Bigger, angrier, prepared, and leading them was the Void Reaper, a dreadnought carved from black alloy, pulsing with red energy. It wasn't just a warship, it was a message: submit or be erased. Captain Relin Vex stood on the balcony of the Arxen defense tower, staring at the monstrosity rising in orbit. Even from the surface, its silhouette blocked out stars. Her voice trembled. That thing is bigger than anything we've ever faced. Beside her, Colonel Riker Kane of Earth nodded slowly. Size doesn't win wars, will does. She looked at him. And do your people have the will for this? Kane's answer came cold and certain. We've been ready for this fight our whole lives. High above, inside the TSS Vengeance 1, Admiral Elena Ward reviewed the fleet's status. Only 6 Terran warships remained in orbit, each one scarred from the last battle. Below, their ground troops were still supporting the Arxen, pulling back. Now would doom everyone. Ward turned to her bridge crew. We hold the line, she said, voice steady. But this time, we strike first. She tapped the screen. A 3D model of the Kravari fleet appeared. Hundreds of ships, but all of them surrounded the Void Reaper like a shield wall. We break their heart, and the rest falls apart. Counterstrike began before the Kravari finished deploying. Without warning, a dozen cloaked Terran drones decloaked behind enemy lines. Each carried a single payload, a gravity spike warhead, illegal under Galactic Council law. But Earth wasn't part of the Council at 0600 hours. All 12 detonated simultaneously. The resulting shockwave crushed 4 Kravari cruisers into themselves, folding metal and bone into dense spheres. The Kravari formation faltered. That's when the Terran warships opened fire from orbit. The people of Arxen looked up and saw Earth's fury. Brilliant blue-white railgun. Bolts sliced through the dark like spears from gods. Missiles with minds of their own swirled, turned, and chased enemy fighters through clouds. And Earth's flagship Vengeance 1 led the charge, shields glowing, cannons thundering, engines burning like suns. The Kravari didn't sit idle. Dozens of their vessels broke off from the Void Reaper to engage the Terrans directly. The sky lit up with fire. Inside her ship, Admiral Ward barked orders with precision. Maintain Formation Delta. Don't let them separate us. On screen, multiple Terran ships were already taking hits. One, the remnant of fire, lost an engine and began to spin. Ward opened a direct channel. Captain Drell, evacuate. I'm pulling your crew. Drell's voice came back, calm, proud. Negative, Admiral. I'm taking 3 of them with me. The remnant of fire turned to Ward, the enemy, engines flaring. With one last charge, it rammed into a Kravari siege tower. Both ships vanished in a white explosion. A moment of silence followed. Then Admiral Ward's voice cut through. Mark the sacrifice. Push forward. On the ground, the Arxen watched as the Terran fleet battled alone in the sky. Captain Relin clenched her fists. We can't just stand here. We have to help them. Colonel Kane nodded. Then get us eyes on the Void Reaper. If we can't reach it from orbit, maybe we can hit it from the ground. Relion's engineers scrambled. Sir, the old defense cannon on Mount Vyar still works, but it's manual fire only. No AI, no remote link. Kane grinned. Then let's fire it the old-fashioned way. As Kravari ships rained fire from above, a small team of Arxen and Terran soldiers raced up the broken trail to the ancient cannon. Bullets whistled. Explosions shook the cliffs, but they made it. Kane himself helped prime the weapon, an old fusion plasma beam, buried for centuries. Just say when, he said. Relin looked through the targeting scope. She saw it. The Void Reaper, shield open, vulnerable. For just a moment while firing, she took a breath. Now, the cannon roared. A blinding spear of white-blue plasma tore into the sky. In orbit, the Void Reaper took the hit straight to its forward hull. The shields flared. Cracked. The great dreadnought staggered for the first time in its long history. Terran crews cheered. Arxen cities echoed with shouts of joy. But Admiral Ward wasn't cheering. Scan it, she ordered. How bad was the damage? The AI responded. Front armor breach detected. But core systems intact. Enemy is retaliating. The Void Reaper's retaliation came hard. Dozens of Kravari ships split from formation. diving straight for Arxon Prime. They weren't targeting the military anymore. They were targeting civilians, hospitals, water supplies, shelter zones. Ward saw the pattern and immediately acted. Atlas, give me a firing solution. Target the Void Reaper's spine. Solution calculated. Risk, 83% of ship damage. Ward's eyes didn't waver. Do it. Vengeance 1 turned alone, facing the Kravari dreadnought. Its main cannon charged, burning brighter than any sun. Then it fired. The blast tore across space, a beam of molten plasma and force. It hit the Void Reaper like a lightning strike. This time, the spine cracked open. Fires broke out. One of its main engines failed. The dreadnought shuddered and began to retreat. Terran ships pushed forward again. The Kravari lines broke. One by one, their ships began to fall back. Some tried to run, others were shot down before they could flee. In 30 more minutes, the entire Kravari second wave was in full retreat. The battle was over. Cheers rose across Arxon Prime. Citizens flooded the streets, weeping, singing, raising flags they had survived again, because of Earth. But not everyone celebrated. Relin stood atop the ruined cannon on Mount Vire, staring into the wounded sky. Colonel Kane joined her. We lost over 100 troops, he said. 2 Terran ships are gone. Half our reserves are used. Relin didn't speak right away. Then she asked, "Why are you still helping us, even after all this?" Kane turned to her, tired but honest. Because someone once helped us when no one else would. And because we've seen what happens when good people do nothing, he added quietly. This galaxy is full of watchers. Earth is full of fighters. Admiral Ward stood in her command room, surrounded by injured officers and flickering screens. She looked up as a message arrived from Earth. New orders, stand by for political fallout. The Galactic Council has called for a meeting. Earth is to be questioned for unauthorized military intervention. Ward read the message once, then deleted it. She turned to her crew, prepped the med bays, restocked the drop pods. We're not done here, because Earth had not come to win medals. They had not come to make friends. They had come because someone had cried for help, and no one else had listened. Smoke still curled into the sky above Arxon Prime. Ashes blew through the wind like gray snow. But there was peace, at least for now, in the heart of the capital. Captain Relin Vex stood before a crowd of survivors. Around her were Terran soldiers, battered and quiet. Their armor was scorched, their eyes tired, but they were alive, and they had done the impossible. Today, Relin said to her people, "We saw what happens when someone answers a call no one else will. Earth came for us, and we are still here because of them." The crowd cheered, but in the shadows of the plaza, Colonel Riker Kane checked his Coombs tablet. The data was clear. Something big was coming. Far away, deep inside Kravari territory, the High War Command gathered in a fortress of black steel and red fire. Massive screens displayed Terran warships, stats, tactics, casualty counts, all from the last battle, a battle the Kravari should have won. At the head of the chamber stood Supreme Warlord Exertal, towering, scaled, and covered in ceremonial armor. He slammed his clawed fist onto the war table. "This is an insult." General Hessek, commander of the Void Reaper, bowed his head in shame. They struck faster than expected. Their weapons are beyond projections. "Humans," Exertal growled, spitting the word from a world of death and storms. "The Council exiled them for a reason. And yet they are the ones defeating us." Hessek tried to speak. "Perhaps. We underestimated their..." Exertal raised a hand. "Enough. Prepare the Oblivion engine." The room fell silent. But Warlord Hessek said cautiously, "The Oblivion engine hasn't been tested. I do not care. Burn Earth, name from history, wipe the Arxon from existence. Show the galaxy what happens when prey dares to bite." Back on Arxon Prime, the Terrans were helping rebuild. Field hospitals dotted the city. Water was flowing. Power was returning. But peace didn't feel secure. Admiral Alina Ward stood with Captain Relin inside the command center, watching orbiting ships on the screen. "Our scanners show Kravari movement on the far edge of the sector," Ward said. "Big movement, how big?" Relin asked. Ward looked at her. "Big enough that we won't survive it alone." She pointed to a dark red zone blinking on the map. They're gathering here, near the Shadow Cluster. It's a dead region. No colonies, no trade lanes. Raleen asked. Ward hesitated. Then she said, nothing, except a deep space weapons vault. In orbit, Earth's remaining warships prepared for a second strike. Reinforcements were still days away, supplies were low. But Earth's captains weren't afraid because they were trained for one thing: war without backup, deep inside the Shadow Cluster. A monstrous device stirred. The Oblivion engine was not a ship. It was a weapon, the size of a small moon. Powered by collapsed star cores, its energy could crack planetary crusts. No one in the galaxy had dared use it. Until now, Kravari fleets formed a ring around it, like priests guarding a god. General Hessock stood aboard the Night Rain, overseeing the final activation. Target locked, an officer reported. Primary Arxon Prime, secondary, Terran fleet, tertiary, orbiting moonbase. Hessock gave the order, prepare to fire. On Arxon Prime, Colonel Kane was inspecting a Terran supply depot when his comm buzzed. He answered and went still. Then he sprinted toward the command dome. Inside, Admiral Ward looked up as he entered. New intel, she asked. Kane slammed the tablet onto the table. They're going to erase the entire planet. Ward's face hardened. How? Kane didn't blink. Oblivion-class weapon. We caught the radiation signature. They're powering up. Relin stepped forward, fear in her voice. Can we stop it? Kane answered coldly. Only if we hit them first. The command team worked quickly. Ward formed a strike plan. Send Vengeance 1 and Echo Lance into the cluster. Fast hit, full burn. Arxon planetary cannons will fire from the opposite angle to split their focus. Relin shook her head. Our cannons aren't strong enough. We'd only be a distraction. Kane looked at her, then be the best damn distraction this galaxy's ever seen. As the Terran fleet broke orbit, civilians across Arxon gathered again. This time, they didn't cry. They didn't panic. They watched Earth's ships fly into danger. Again, and they began to believe something new. Maybe Earth wasn't a death world. Maybe Earth was hope. In deep space, the Terran strike force dropped from SLIPSTREAM. Sensors immediately screamed. Hundreds of Kravari ships, one Oblivion engine, and a command structure protected by heavy shields. Ward didn't flinch. All units execute formation hammerfall. Engage cloaking, ready rail coils. Terran ships split into groups. Each moved like wolves, circling prey. The Kravari saw them coming. Hessock snarled. Fire now. Destroy them before they get close. The Oblivion engine began to glow. Ward smiled. Too late. Terran bombers burst from behind asteroid cover, racing past Kravari defenses. They weren't heading for ships. They were heading for the engine's core. On Arxon Prime, Relin and her officers activated every ground cannon. The sky turned gold with plasma fire. Kravari ships in orbit scrambled to shield themselves, just as Earth wanted. Inside the cluster, Admiral Ward's team reached firing position. Target the primary core, she ordered. Her ship's main. Railguns spun up, power surged, lights dimmed, fire. The projectile smashed into the side of the Oblivion engine, cracking its external armor. Another followed, then another. The engine's glow began to flicker. Inside, Kravari engineers screamed as pressure built uncontrollably. Abort. Hessock shouted, shut it down. But it was too late. The Terrans had struck the cooling node. The Oblivion engine exploded, not outward, but inward. It imploded, dragging nearby Kravari ships into the collapse. Dozens vanished into the firestorm. Admiral Ward's ship was thrown sideways by the shockwave. Sparks flew. Alarms rang, but the fleet held together, and on every channel, Terran crews reported, target destroyed, enemy retreating. Victory confirmed. The war wasn't over, but something had changed. The Kravari had lost their greatest weapon. They had been outsmarted, outgunned, outfought by Earth. Inside the burning wreckage of the Kravari command ship, General Hessock crawled through the flames. He whispered one word to his dying crew: humans. Back on Arxon Prime, Admiral Ward returned with what remained of her fleet. Her ships were damaged, her people were exhausted, but her eyes held fire. In the Capitol Plaza, Captain Relin welcomed her home. Why did you come back? Relin asked. Ward looked at the crowd, at the children, at the wounded, at the flags. Then she said, "Because this is what Earth does. When monsters come, we don't run, we hunt." After the destruction of the Oblivion engine, the stars went quiet. No new attacks, no Kravari fleets, just silence. On Arxon Prime, survivors rebuilt. Terran engineers worked beside Arxon builders. Children laughed in streets once filled with fire. But Admiral Alina Ward didn't smile. She stared at a holographic map in her command dome. Deep in thought. "There's no way they're done," she said. "Colonel Riker?" Kane nodded. "Kravari don't retreat, they reload." Captain Relin? Vex looked between them. "What are they waiting for?" Ward leaned forward. "They lost the Oblivion engine. They lost 2 fleets. And now they're watching us," Kane added. "And when the enemy watches, it means they're planning something worse." Meanwhile, in deep space, inside a hidden Kravari command, Citadel, the High Warlord Exer. Tal listened in silence as his remaining generals argued. Terran weapons exceed expected strength. Their ground tactics are recover too fast. Exertal stood and pointed to a black screen, a file labeled Project Reaper, Terran Forbidden Archive. "They haven't used it yet," he said. "But Earth has a final weapon. The humans call it Project Reaper. Back on Earth, hidden beneath the frozen mountains of Siberia." A door opened for the first time in 60 years. Inside was darkness, silence, ice. Then a spark of power, artificial. Lights blinked on, and a voice, synthetic and deep, echoed through the chamber. "Welcome back. Project Reaper standing by." General Lucian Grange, head of Terran Deep Command, stepped into the cold vault beside him. Walked a figure with no name, a woman in black armor, face covered, eyes glowing faintly. She spoke only once, I assume. "I'm needed." Grange nodded. "It's time." On Arxon Prime, Admiral Ward received a secure transmission. She read the file, then read it again. And again, Relin watched her grow, still pale. "What is it?" Relin asked. Ward exhaled. "They approved it." "Approved what?" "Earth's failsafe." She turned the display around. One line of text was highlighted. "Reaper deployment." A UTH Toro Zeta Colonel Kane explained it in low tones. "Back during Earth's worst war, the one that almost ended us, they created a prototype, a human rebuilt with forbidden tech, faster than machines, smarter than A's, deadlier than fleets." Relin blinked. "A human weapon." Kane nodded. "She doesn't need an army. She is the army." The next day, a new ship arrived in Arxon. Orbit, sleek, black. No insignia, no one knew where it came from, appeared. Inside, she stood alone. Codename Reaper 1, she wore armor forged from a living alloy. She carried weapons not listed in any known database. Her orders were simple. Seek the Kravari command, destroy it, end the war, while others prepared. Defenses, she vanished into deep space, alone, one human, versus an empire. Across the galaxy, the Kravari continued to mass their remaining strength. Inside a massive station called the Crown of Teeth, Warlord Exertal held court. "Let them come," he growled. "Let their warships return. We will drown them in blood." But then, the alarms screamed. Breach detected. One of their hangars had depressurized. Security teams dispatched no survivors. Minutes later, a reactor failed in Sector 4, then Sector 7, then Sector 3. Each explosion was precise. Each system failure had no trace of sabotage, only silence and shadows. Reaper 1 moved through the fortress like a ghost. Her HUD tracked 1,200 targets. She eliminated them one by one, fast, efficient, and emotionless. Turrets failed to lock onto. Her cameras flickered and died. Her blade, black and curved, tore through Kravari armor like air dot. No words, no mercy, only mission. Terran High Command received her updates in cold reports. Objective 1, command deck breached. Objective 2, target Hesok neutralized. Objective 3, communications array destroyed. Admiral Ward read each line, in awe. This is one person." Kane nodded. "No. She's what happens when Earth gets desperate." On the Crown of Teeth, Warlord Exertal realized too late what had arrived. "This isn't war," he hissed. "This is execution." He fled to the escape deck with 5 elite guards. They never made it. She was waiting for them. The battle lasted 12 seconds. At the end, Exertal fell to his knees. "Why? Why are you doing this?" he asked, coughing blood. Ripper One's voice was calm. By the time Earth's fleet arrived to finish the assault, the station was already in flames, and Reaper One was gone. No signal, no trace, just a message, carved into the walls of the Kravari command throne. "We warned you." Earth the news spread fast across the galaxy. Empires trembled. Species that once ignored Earth now feared them. Because this time they hadn't just won a battle, they had ended a war. With a single human on Arxen Prime. Captain Relin received the report. She stood silently in the square where her people gathered. Then she raised her voice. "It's over," she said. "The Kravari are broken, and they will not return." Cheers erupted. People wept. Bells rang. But in the corner, Colonel Kane stood quietly. Watching the stars, Relin approached him. "You don't seem happy." He looked up. Victory always feels strange when you survive what others don't. Relin put a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't just help us survive, you helped us fight back." That night, a new flag flew beside the Arxen banner. It was Earth's, but not as a conqueror, as a friend, as a protector, as the protector, as the voice that answered when the galaxy went silent. In the days that followed the destruction of the Kravari's command center, silence returned to the stars. The war, as far as anyone could tell, was over. The Kravari had vanished, retreating into the dark corners of the galaxy where even scanners refused to follow. On Arxen Prime, rebuilding continued with speed and determination. Children no longer flinched at the sound of aircraft. And above it all, Earth's warships remained watchful and quiet. But peace was fragile. Inside the command dome, atop Velar Prime, Admiral Alina Ward stared at the newest message flashing across her secure screen. A direct communication from the Galactic Council, sealed, urgent, encrypted to the highest level, her jaw tightening with each line. The Council was not thanking Earth. They were not offering support or assistance or even acknowledgement. They were calling Earth to account for unauthorized military engagement, deployment of prohibited technology, and escalation of interstellar conflict. She leaned back slowly in her chair, her voice calm but sharp. "So we save a planet, and now we're the criminals." Colonel Riker Kane stood nearby, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. They didn't lift a finger when Arxen begged for help, not one ship, not one medic. But now that Earth showed up, they're scared. Scared we reminded the galaxy of what humans are capable of. Captain Relin Vex entered moments later, reading the expressions on their faces. Another threat. Ward turned the screen toward her. Relin scanned the message, her face hardening with disbelief. "They want you to appear before the Council." "Earth," Ward corrected. "Not just me. The Terran Union. They want us to explain ourselves before every major species in the galaxy. On record, under oath. They want to put you on trial." "For saving us," Relin's voice cracked with disbelief. "No," Kane said. "They want to make an example out of us. They're punishing us for proving they were cowards." The Galactic Council, located on the massive city station known as High Reach, had never once summoned a non-member species to trial. Of justice, it was a matter of fear. Earth had used tactics the Council didn't understand. Earth had fought and won without asking for permission, and the galaxy had watched. The message was clear. Such behavior could not be allowed to stand. 2 days later, under heavy escort, the TSS Envoy Prime departed Arxen Prime, carrying Admiral Ward, Colonel Kane, and a small Terran delegation. The Arxen pleaded to come along. Ward politely refused. "This isn't your fight," she said. "Not anymore." But Relin had replied softly, "It became our fight the moment Earth bled for U.S." As the Earth ship entered warp, thousands of Arxen stood in the streets, saluting the black vessel as it vanished into the stars. The High-Rich Citadel was a monstrosity of stone and light, carved from the moons of 4 dead worlds. Inside its vast marble halls, the most powerful species in the galaxy gathered, toll-winged diplomats from the Vorax Ascendancy, crystalline empaths from the Drell Combine, sentient fungal networks encased in golden tanks. The hall had not been this full in centuries. At the center stood the council's speaker. Flanked by Kane and her aides, 1,000 eyes turned toward her. No human had ever set foot in this chamber. Not alive, anyway. Flores' voice echoed across the chamber. You stand accused of violating Protocol 9A, deploying prescribed weapons, operating autonomous war assets without interstellar approval, and initiating contact with a protected species. Admiral Ward's voice was calm. We responded to a distress signal. You responded without council consent. There was no time. Arxon Prime was hours from extinction. You acted alone, Tora replied. Ward didn't blink. Yes, we did. Gasps rippled across the chamber. One of the counselors, a feathered being from the Vunari Reach, spoke next. The deployment of Project Reaper is a direct violation of all known laws. That unit alone ended a war without diplomatic channels. That is not assistance. That is domination. Kane stepped forward. The Kravari were not interested in diplomacy. They were interested in genocide. The Drell representative pulsed glowing green, and yet Earth did what the rest of us chose not to. You picked up a weapon instead of sending a voice. And if we hadn't, Ward asked coldly, would your council have helped them? Would you have broken your neutrality? For a dying world, she activated a hologram and sent a message directly to Highreach. Her words were brief but carried weight. Earth saved us when our cries went unanswered. They answered. We do not stand behind them in guilt. We stand beside them in honor. If you punish them, you punish all of us. At the council chamber, the message played in full view. Flores' silence was heavy. For a long moment, no one moved. Then a new voice spoke. It came from the far end of the chamber. Unexpected, uninvited. The hologram of Ambassador Velsar of the Gorvan Union blinked into view. He had resigned from the council after its inaction during the Kravari siege. He spoke now with fire. You should be ashamed, he said to the assembly. He pointed a claw toward the humans. Earth did not break the law. Earth reminded us why the law exists, to protect life. And if we are too afraid to act, then maybe Earth is what this galaxy needs. The vote began. Some council members called for Earth to be sanctioned. Others called for Earth to be invited to the table. Still others said nothing at all. When the results were counted, a narrow majority had chosen neutrality. No punishment, but no invitation either. Earth was free to go, but it would never be welcomed. As the humans left Highreach, Kane looked toward Ward. Kane looked out at the stars. We weren't made for councils, anyway. No, Ward said. We were made for something else. On Arxon Prime, celebrations broke out when the news arrived. Earth had not been punished. The Arxon declared the day a planetary holiday. Statue was raised in the capital's central plaza. It showed an Arxon child reaching toward the stars, and a Terran Marine reaching back at the bottom. A plaque read, "When the galaxy turned away." The galaxy did not forget. The war with the Kravari had ended in fire, smoke, and silence, but the memory of how it ended burned brighter than any battlefield. Not because of ships, not because of fleets, because of her, the Terran weapon. The shadow with a face. The ghost, the Kravari, feared even in their dreams, the one they called Reaper. She had vanished after her mission, leaving no trace, no signal, no confirmation of survival. Earth refused to comment. The council dared not ask, but the galaxy whispered, on mining colonies at the edge of the rim. Smugglers told stories of a figure who walked without sound and left behind only silence. On war-torn planets where rebellion brewed, some claimed they saw her just before enemy leaders were found dead in locked bunkers. She had become something, more than a weapon. She had become a legend. On Arxon Prime, Captain Relin Vex stood before the memorial statue in the capital square. The day was quiet. A warm wind rustled the flags beside her. She wore a formal robe now, not armor. She was no longer a frontline commander. She was now part of the new Arxon Defense Parliament, rebuilt with help from Terran advisors. But she still remembered what it had felt like. The helplessness, the horror, the silence from the stars, until Earth answered behind her. Colonel Riker Kane approached. He hadn't left the planet since the war ended. He helped train soldiers now, not just in weapons, but in mindset. Every time I see that statue, he said, I wonder if she's out there, watching Relin. didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "Some stories are bigger than the people they're about." Kane grinned. That's exactly what scares the Council. Elsewhere, across the galaxy, cracks were beginning to show. The Galactic Council, though unchanged in structure, had been shaken at its core. Several species had quietly withdrawn funding. Others questioned their neutrality, and one, the Union, outright declared Earth as the new balance of power in the outer sectors in a hidden chamber within Council space. Senior diplomats held a private meeting. "She cannot be real," one hissed. "No human could do what she did." "She is real," another replied. "And if she returns, it may not be as a weapon. It may be as a symbol." "Symbols are worse," the first said. "They don't die easily." Back on Earth, far below, the Siberian mountains. The Project Reaper Vault remained sealed, but deep within the Earth's intelligence networks, coded signals were exchanged. Surveillance satellites tracked unexplained anomalies. Ship logs recorded strange activity near uninhabited systems. One such signal was detected in a region known only as the Scorched Belt, a cluster of abandoned war zones from a century-old conflict. Terran Command reviewed the data. A single ship had passed through. No registration, no IFF beacon, no traceable drive signature. But it had left behind a warning, carved into the wreckage of a Kravari listening post. No more second chances. The carving was identical to the symbols used by Reaper One. Admiral Alina Ward, now back on Earth, stood inside the Terran Strategic Command Center. She stared at the report, her fingers tight around the datapad. "Is it her?" General Grange asked. Ward didn't look up. "We don't know, but we'll never stop wondering." Grange leaned closer. "If she's still alive, then she's outside the chain of command." Ward's voice lowered. "She always was." Meanwhile, in the ruins of the Kravari Outer Bastion, survivors whispered of a new fear. Their warlords were dead, their fleets scattered, their people leaderless. But those who survived the fall told stories of a single figure, not a ship, not a fleet. A lone soldier who had moved through walls, who knew every door before it opened, who had silenced the last screams before they could echo. They did not call her human. They called her the Black Signal, and they feared it might return. Across the Outer Rim, rebellion grew. Colonies once ruled by fear saw Earth's victory and believed again. Civilians painted Terran flags on steel walls. Children played with wooden models of Earth's warships. Entire resistance movements began to quote Reaper's words, even if no one truly knew what they had been in one backwater port. An old smuggler sat before a campfire and spoke to a young group of scavengers. "You ever hear what she said?" To the Kravari leader, he asked. They leaned forward. She said, "You thought we were monsters. You were Rum. We're what comes after the monsters." "Did she really say that?" One boy whispered. The old man shrugged. "Who knows? Maybe she didn't say a thing. Maybe she just looked at him." 1 week later, a strange incident occurred. On the edge of Council territory, an unregistered freighter was found adrift. Its crew gone, no signs of violence. Every system intact. Inside, in the ship's command center, a single phrase had been burned into the metal wall. "I go where the silence lives." When the report reached the Council, panic quietly spread. Earth was contacted for explanation. Earth replied simply, "No Terran ship has entered that region. We are investigating." And that was the end of it. But deep beneath the words, everyone knew the truth. Reaper had returned. Not to destroy, not yet, but to watch. To remind them that Earth had eyes now everywhere, and the galaxy had changed forever. Back on Arxon Prime, Captain Relin looked up at the stars as night fell. She remembered what the sky had looked like when the Kravari came, full of fear, of death, of fire, and she remembered what it had looked like when Earth answered .com, black, silent, until it wasn't. She whispered into the air, unsure if anyone or anything was listening. "Wherever you are, thank you." And far away, aboard a silent vessel gliding between dying stars, a figure in black armor stood alone. No name, no flag, no voice, only mission. And she smiled just slightly. As the stars drifted by, months had passed. The stars felt calmer now, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. There were no more Kravari fleets, no new wars. Trade routes reopened. colonies repaired. Even the Galactic Council began to relax. But Earth didn't. Admiral Alina Ward reviewed reports daily from deep space listening posts. She had learned long ago that real threats didn't arrive with noise, they came with silence. And recently, something was missing from that silence. The Kravari hadn't sent a single transmission in 91 days. Not a ping, not a code, not even static. She stood in the Terran Defense Dome, staring at a star map with blinking red sectors. One of her aides approached quietly. "Ma'am." Another outpost went dark. No sign of attack, no bodies, just empty. Ward nodded slowly. "That's the third this week." She didn't say the obvious. Someone, or something, was moving again. On Arxen Prime, Captain Relenvex was visiting a newly built academy, one co-run by Arxen and Terran instructors. Young cadets trained in tactics, survival, diplomacy, hopeful faces, determined eyes. But Kane stood outside, leaning against a stone column, watching the sky. "Something's wrong," he said quietly when Relen joined him. She raised an eyebrow. "We're safe, more stable than we've ever been." He shook his head. "That's the problem. This isn't peace, it's a reset." "Something's circling us," Relen frowned. "Kravari." Kane shrugged. "Or something worse." Meanwhile, beyond known space, deep in the rift expanse, a Terran recon probe floated through ion storms and shattered moons. Its signal was weak, its journey long. It was never meant to return, but it sent one last message. It showed a station. Massive alien, covered in dark growth and glowing glyphs. Kravari ... but altered, and orbiting it, ships, hundreds of them. Not Kravari design, sleeker, sharper, unidentified. The signal ended with a final image, a symbol scorched into the hull of one ship. Something new, something no one had seen before. A circle with jagged edges and a bleeding star at its center. Terran intelligence received the footage. They called it the wound mark, and they labeled the file. Classified threat level. Omega back, at high reach. The Galactic Council once again argued in endless circles. Some claimed it was fake. Others blamed Earth again. A few wise ones simply watched Earth's reaction. When Ward's report was leaked, panic swept the outer colonies. Small systems began requesting Terran protection directly, bypassing the Council. Earth didn't respond publicly, but quietly. Ships began to move. Old battle groups, reserve fleets, stations that hadn't powered up in decades. Earth was preparing, not for retaliation, for survival. On a forgotten moon, long dead from ancient war, a Terran scout team found something. Buried deep under ice and rock, they uncovered a Kravari black site. But the Kravari inside were not Kravari anymore. Bodies mutated. Armor fused to flesh. Symbols carved into bone. One soldier reported hearing a voice, not through comms, but directly in his mind. It said, "The Reaper opened the path. Now we walk through it." Back on Earth, Admiral Ward called an emergency summit, not with the Council, but with allies who had stood silent during the Arxen crisis. Some refused, a few listened. One came in person, the Drael Combined Speaker, a crystalline entity older than many stars, sat across from Ward and Kane. "We believe you," it said, "because we know fear when we feel it." Ward narrowed her. "AI Zen, help us." The Drael hesitated. "Not yet, but when the storm comes, we will not be blind again, and far beyond where the galaxy's light dims and nothing moves without being watched." Something did watch, not a species, not a fleet, not even a mind in the traditional sense. It was old, hungry, patient, and it remembered the one who had wounded its vessel, who had broken the cycle of silence. It remembered her armor, her eyes, her edge, and it named her Echo, a call. To be answered, a challenge to be met. The spark she lit had begun to burn. Not just in fear, but in vengeance. On a cold outpost deep in the Varan Belt, a merchant vessel docked to deliver supplies. The crew entered. They found no one inside, but on the walls, scrawled in soot, someone had left a message. "I saw the Reaper. She's still hunting. But now she's not alone." Darkness was no longer coming. It was here, across outer systems. Colonies went dark in patterns, not random, not chaotic, but precise. Entire space stations left in perfect order. Ships docked, lights on, doors open, but no one aboard. No signs of struggle. just absence. The wound-marked, as they were now called, did not announce themselves. They didn't invade. They replaced silently, efficiently, without mercy. And they were growing. Admiral Elena Ward stood inside Terran Command on Earth, eyes fixed on a rapidly expanding holographic map. Red sectors, then orange, now yellow. Each meant one thing: systems. Where contact was lost, or worse, systems too afraid to respond. Colonel Kane stood beside her. His voice was grim. "We can't stop it from spreading, not with what we have." "We won't fight it, system by system," Ward replied. "We strike the source." Kane raised a brow. But they both knew who might dot in the shadows of Terran intelligence's deepest vaults. A beacon flickered to life coordinates. Unknown system, signal, authenticated. Origin, classified black asset, Repr 1, had sent a message. "I found it. It's not a species. It's a hunger." The Terran Reclamation Fleet was formed in less than 72 hours. Not just warships, Earth's oldest, meanest. Kill directives written into their core. The Drell Combine sent 6 crystalline flagships that hadn't moved in 1,000 years. Even independent mercenary guilds volunteered ships, saying only, "If Earth's going, we're going." It needed Earth more than ever. The fleet moved toward the rift. Expanse, where the darkness was thickest, where the signals died. And then they found it. A construct the size of a moon, floating in a dead star system. Not made, not grown, formed. It pulsed with organic light, veins of red and black, orbiting it like parasites around a wound. The source, the origin of the wound marked, the thing behind the Kravari's fall, the force whispering into minds. She tapped the glass display. "Burn it." The sky erupted. Plasma beams lanced. Across the void, missile storms screamed from launch bays. It fired voices. Terran crews screamed as hallucinations flooded there. Minds, memories, pain, loved ones lost. Some ships broke formation. The ones raised on storms and silence kept pushing forward. And then she arrived. Out of nowhere, no slipstream, no warp trail, a black vessel emerged. It didn't move like a ship, it moved like a thought, and from its hull she descended, Reaper-1. Her armor cracked with energy. Her weapons glowed with something old, something Earth had buried and never dared use again. She dropped into the enemy construct like a falling star for 6 minutes. Not a machine. A living will, ancient and cruel. Reaper didn't answer with words. She answered with fire. She overloaded her weapons, turned herself into a signal bomb. Its ships spasmed. Its whispers died mid-sentence. Even Reaper, only the echo of her last words recovered from a half-corrupted signal in the blast. "Tell them." Back on Arxon Prime, they held the largest remembrance in galactic history. Not for Earth, not just for the fallen. Cloak torn, blade lowered, stars behind her. At its base, etched in both Terran and Arxon script, she answered the call. Then became the silence that saved us all. Earth did not celebrate. It built, reforged, prepared, because they knew peace was not a gift. It was a pause. But this time, when the darkness came again, it would find Earth ready, and it would never find them alone. The end.